we are all ready to move on to a third segment, or means third panel of discussion, which is news on television, a marketer's delight. I have a list of points which our esteemed set of speakers are going to discuss here. Number one is, are marketers looking at news television as an opportunity? Okay. Can news television be a good marketing tool for marketers? How news television is opening up new avenues for marketers? The ever-changing landscape of the news television industry. You can take it easy, guys. No problem. Are news channels able to draw advertisers with record viewerships? Can marketers capitalize on it? Are the news channels exciting and have good viewerships? So there are these set of questions which are going to be there in this discussion. And to talk on news on television, a marketer's delight, we have our esteemed set of speakers. Once again, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Aditya Tandon, who is the Vice President and Head, Marketing and Product News 18 HC. Please welcome on stage, sir, with a loud round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Aditya. We have a tea break after this session, so can I see that energy in the applause? I think applause should continue. We have Mr. Anindya Khare, who is the Marketing Head, Zee Media Corporation Limited. Can we have you on stage, sir? हिंदी में कह देती हूँ, जोरदार तालियों के साथ इनका स्वागत करते हैं. Yes. We have Mr. Anita Nayyar, Chief Operating Officer, Media and Communications, Patanjali Ayurved Limited. Please welcome, ma'am. Okay. We have Ms. Mona Jain, Chief Revenue Officer, ABP Network. I feel immense pleasure welcoming you on stage, ma'am. Very nice. इस बार मेरे बिना कहे ही तालियां बज गईं for the gorgeous lady out there. We have Mr. Prasun Kumar, Chief Marketing Officer, Just Dial. Please welcome, sir. We have Mr. Samir Sethi, Vice President and Head of Brand Marketing, Policybazaar.com. We are honored to have you here on stage, sir. We have Mr. Shashank Srivastav, Senior Executive Director, Marketing and Sales, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Can we have you on stage, Shashank? Thank you for your gracious presence. Wow, wonderful. And to chair this session, we have Mr. Amit Wadhwa, Chief Executive Officer, Dentsu Creative India. Please welcome Amit. All set for this session. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone. Welcome. What a star-studded panel I have when we are talking about brands and building brands on news channels. So we have people from the marketing fraternity who actually handle and build brands. We have people from the news media industry who actually help those brands. We actually have two people who actually are from the news industry building brands. So what a fantastic mix of panel that we have today. And just to start it off, you know, we're talking about building brands. And when you're talking about building brands, it's very important to create the right communication and messaging, right? But equally important, if not more, is the platform that you choose to put it on, right? Because you create great content, but it needs to reach the right people, reach enough number of people. So my first question, and I can start with you, Shashank, here is, so when you look at the entire gamut of options that you have in terms of putting the content, where do you place news channels, and how important do you think they are in the entire scheme of things when it comes to building brands?
Yeah, so thank you for that lead. Actually, I believe news is one of the most important genre that can help build brands, and especially so and I'm coming from an auto background, so for automobiles, for RTG, this is one of the areas which has got high affinity, and therefore we invest a lot in news. In fact, if you look at the overall ad industry also, probably is the third largest genre after GEC, which is about 7,000 crores. The sports, maybe about 5,500, and then this news, which is about 3,000 crores. Our investment is also roughly in the same lines, except that our investment in sports is probably larger because of the affinity of RTG. It's very important. News is also important, I believe, because it cuts across geographies, all age consumers, demographies. So that's something which is very. It's also, the content itself. It's something innate in human beings of wanting to know about what's happening. Of course, it can be informative. It can also be, of course, entertaining in some cases, in which case you might like to classify it as GEC. But it's a very important channel, and we invest almost like 25% or 26% of our investments in television advertising on news.
On news. That's substantial, fantastic. So I like that bit about informative and entertaining when it comes to news, and rightly so, absolutely. And why not? You are capturing people's attention while you're giving them information also. Samir, you want to add something on this from your perspective as to where do you see you build brands, and you've been building Policybazaar for the last 8.5 years is what you told me. How do you view news channels as a platform?
So, like Shashank pointed out, news is a very critical genre on television for the auto category. It is an equally critical genre for the BFSI category as well, particularly insurance. We, being a 12-month advertiser, we have a campaign running every month. Ballpark, we are on air on television about 250, 260 days in a year. For us also, news is one genre that takes the highest proportion of spends on television. The entire news genre combined, which would include Hindi news, English news, as well as regional news. We have done more than 100 campaigns in the last few years since we advertise every month. Not a single campaign has missed news as a genre on television. This would highlight the importance of the news genre for us. And for a lot of other brands as well, I'm sure it's a regular feature. And like Shashank rightly pointed out, it's become all the more entertaining in the last few years, which would also make sense because, a lot of times there is news on offer available. A lot of times you have to sort of spice it up for the audiences. So yeah, it's an extremely critical genre, and I believe it will continue to be.
Perfect. No, thanks so much for and as a consumer, you always, I've always said that they will probably getting more and more important rather than anything else. But good to see marketers also putting the same perspective very strongly out. Now we've heard from the brand side, Mona, from your perspective, from so to say the broadcaster side of it, what's your view as to how should one view a news channel?
So first of all, I have to say thank you very much for this. I'm very privileged because I have a very focused marketers, sitting next to me, both sides. So therefore, I have an opportunity of pitching. And that's the reason why I thought, let me put my points together, not to miss any point in the pitch. Okay.
Why do you think I accepted it? I'm from the advertising industry.
So it's a great opportunity. I mean, and I have people who actually have been speaking very well about it also. Thank you very much for that. I think the critical thing is, well, everybody's kind of spoken about the significance, the importance of news genre, in their brand building exercise. I think the last 2 years, we have really seen the genre coming up very prominently. I think that's very, very important to kind of, really note. And we also know that, few other genres, for instance, entertainment genre, or the movie genre has actually declined. The audiences have eroded. They have kind of moved on to other platforms like digital, maybe, or maybe people are watching something else. The consumer themselves have kind of changed a lot. So media landscape hasn't really changed because of technology, like what everybody believes so. But I think also because in the last 2 years, people are watching something else altogether. I think that's the reason why. But one genre, which I'm happy to kind of say has really not changed. They still have their loyalist audiences staying on, with them. And I think that is an opportunity for advertisers to keep engaging consistently, constantly with, this very loyalist audiences. I know that, the brands, around us, look at news genre in terms of commodity buying, maybe incremental reach on the overall plan that they kind of build for themselves, through buying commercial spots or non-commercial spots. Example, like an L band or an Aston band, which comes on the content. Therefore, they kind of believe it's getting comprehended more. But I also believe there are many more things that they can do. I think I would really kind of urge the marketers to really invest a little bit more time, because the consumer who is on the news genre is a very serious genre. A person who's kind of sitting and watching news comes every day on the channel, wanting to kind of, really learn, and know what's really happening around him, make a decision, opinion about that, discuss it around, also see the implication for themselves in the future. So it's a very, very serious platform to be on. And I think it deserves, the marketers to kind of spend a little more time with, the people at the broadcasters end and discuss how can they kind of create better solutions and engage with the consumers in a far more stronger and in-depth way. So that's what my urgence to the marketers would be. Thank you.
That's a strong pitch, I must say.
Yes.
And it's right, actually. What you say
and I'm
is...
looking at few people here. Very specifically.
And you I'm not surprised. But yeah, I think you're right. When it comes to news channels, the consumer sitting there is far more involved, far more engaged than most other genres. So that's very interesting. Okay, let's see a different perspective, right? The perspective is of actually people who are in the news industry, so to say, but at the same time handling marketing there, right? So how would you, and I can start with Aditya, how would you excite the marketers, you yourself being a marketer?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny, I was mentioning to you, it's a funny space to be as far as this particular panel is concerned, because, at one end, you've got your marketeers hat on, and then, you're also a broadcaster. Broadly, I think what Mona said, I think there was a lot of value in, in terms of what a news platform is able to offer to a marketer, there's a lot of value. And, as a marketer, when you look at, it could be any metric that you're chasing, right? It could be, whether it's reach or impact or, engagement, awareness. There could be many different metrics. I think the true value for me when I look at a news brand is the flexibility that a news brand is able to bring to the market. So it's not one or the other, but it's everything. Depending upon the kind of engagement that you do with the news platform, you could move the needle on multiple parameters as far as your brand metrics are concerned. And I think that's really where the unique proposition of a news brand lies. I think that's something which is very unique to us.
That's a good point there. Anindya, would you want to add to this, again, coming from the same perspective there, right? Marketer and from the news industry.
Certainly. So I think a lot has already been shared. The way I look at it is that I actually come more from a brand side and not exactly as a broadcaster side 2 years back. And as a chief marketing officer, I always had news genre in my media plan for a couple of reasons. As a marketer, what basically you are looking at in the conditions that we all operate, doesn't matter whether you have huge wallet in terms of budget or you have a small wallet, but at the same time what you're looking is for the optimization part. And I firmly believe, even before being part of this fraternity, that probably the most optimized medium is news. The kind of reach that it helps you build, probably there is no other medium which can help you. So all the smart marketers actually, use TV, news TV specifically, to build their reach at probably less than 50% of what they will have to do if they go for other genres.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting how you put it, actually. We all keep talking about digital, and it's absolutely critical and important, but it is also important to get that reach, that awareness. And I guess that's where TV and specifically news does play a role.
Can I just
Prasun.
add on to what he
Yeah,
said?
absolutely, Mona.
Sorry, in fact, one of my, my strategy person was telling me that, if you look at the 6 weeks kind of, evaluation of the news genre data, every week you have a newer audiences. So actually you have an opportunity of actually incrementing, your reach and at a very, very effective, very, very low cost entry level, in the 4 weeks of campaign. So I think it's the best platform to kind of really be on from that point of view.
An interesting point again, right? When a lot of us talk about digital brands, we also talk about other television platforms. And, what is that one platform that all of these guys clock to? So if you have a Star or a sports platform, they're all advertising on news, and there's a reason for that, right? Just, some food for thought.
We buy it, absolutely. So Prasun, I'll put the next question to you. Innovation is the key, right? I might not even need to belabor the point. You need to do something different, something unique every time as we move along. I come from an industry where advertising's changed completely. It used to be very simple. TV, print, radio, that's about it. Now it's as complicated as hell now. Digital is not one medium, it's probably 2,000 mediums. So, and we innovating on a daily basis. And that's true for news channels also. So what is it that news channels are innovating? What is it that newness that is being infused there, according to you, from a marketer's perspective? Or how would you want to use it differently?
Well, I think a lot has been covered, but as a marketer, as a brand custodian, when you look at news, when you evaluate that platform, and I'm talking about television news right now, there's a science part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Where you are looking at a media plan and we are, using news genre as frequency builder or incremental, and evaluating it from that perspective. But there is a whole lot of opportunity which is outside of that science that lies there. News probably is the only genre to my mind which is very, very next to sports in terms of impact. Why? Is because the power of live is only with news as a platform. GCs can't be live. The concept is not that, right? Now, as Mona was saying, there are newer audiences coming. And that's the strength of news as a platform. You have transient audiences who are coming in and they are sampling the content, they are moving on and so on and so forth. Right? I think one of the challenges also is how do you probably hold on to them, how do you increase stickiness and therefore add value for the brand which is on the platform. But as a marketer, I would want to be present in those moments of that high hockey stick reach and ratings when they are happening, when the events are unfolding and it's being broadcasted live, and if there is a way to really ride that curve, I think that will do a whole lot of good to marketers and brands per se. And I think platform owners have to figure out how to do that. Really, that's one part of that. And the second part is news. I think only news as a genre has the potential to give marketers, kind of a holy grail that they have always been searching for, which is how do you really create, an impact out of the entire proposition that you have, kind of thought through, right? From communication and your, plan point. Now, traditionally as marketers, we have been looking at multiple mediums and we using them for different reasons, right? So, in past, I recall we used to use print for impact, and it was defined as a medium which generates impact in the morning for the day. You kind of create and kind of you move on. Television was more sustaining and more long term. So there were historical boundaries that were there that marketers have been using. In today's time, I think news, because there's so much happening around us, and this is really that volatile world that we are in. News has this opportunity to give brands those opportunities to create those moments of impact almost on a daily basis, right? The formats will have to be evolved, and how are you really able to do that? But news has immense potential, and I, as a marketer, part of the science, of course, is taken for granted. That will be there, and Shashank was saying, and you were saying that it's always there as part of the plan. I think for most of the big brands, it's part of the plan anyway. Right? So, but that's not the point. The point is, how is it really helping brand, right? And I think in these moments, if you are able to capitalize and create and capitalize, we will see much better ROI coming from this genre than what we are used to other.
Interesting. So interesting that you say that news for impact, and that too on a daily basis. Pretty interesting.
Can I just add on to the marketer? I'm sorry, I can't kind of stop myself. I think absolutely, Prasun, we were talking about it earlier also. I think one of the key characteristics, in the old times of media planning, is to say medium as a medium as a vehicle. So the medium as a characteristic, it's immediate. You can actually kind of really ride onto it immediately, real time. And one of the examples that really I can't resist kind of sharing, and it's one of my favorite examples, is when PM Modi, he kind of announced demonetization at that point in time, and transaction in cash became difficult, and suddenly the digital option became prevalent. And I think one brand who really kind of took a high ground, almost became generic to the category, really was Paytm. And I kind of believe that. So that's the whole thing, and somebody maybe at the agency end or the client end thought through same time, when it was happening, and took that opportunity to kind of really ensure that they were there, when this entire discussion of this transaction digital option was happening, and when for a viewer or for a consumer or even for an opinion leader, suddenly Paytm actually became the generic option. And I think so it's important that marketers also, for instance, take the initiative, and kind of think proactively, and therefore engage, on their own, with the broadcasters, with ideas. And I'm sure a lot of innovations will come from our end, because we do have focus verticals, who kind of really work on brand solutions, for the advertiser. So sorry, I couldn't resist kind of really adding on to that.
I take that as a challenge too. Well, we will from the advertising side. Samir, no, absolutely. And it's a good point that you put. Samir, anything from your side, again, on this thing about either it could be something that you've done or you would expect to do, anything that you think would be different there.
So, adding on to both what Prasun and Mona were mentioning about A, the live nature of news, and B, the innovation opportunities that the genre would offer. I'll give an example of something we did very recently, which happened for the first time on Indian television. This is an innovation we did during the counting day of the assembly elections that happened of the 5 states recently, a few months ago.
Yeah.
So we did this innovation with the National News Network, which operates a both Hindi and an English channel. And during the period of counting, before even going into the break, the panelists stopped speaking, and a with audio ad of Policybazaar was played live. And then we went back to the panel discussion.
So this is during the discussion then?
Yeah, during the discussion. I mean, people just paused. They took a sort of a break without actually going into a break. They were in the newsroom. The numbers of which party is getting how many seats were being displayed around the corners of the screen. And there was a Policybazaar ad being played in one half of the screen with the audio. So this is one innovation we did for the first time. And, I'm just putting it out there
Very
for
nice.
you guys.
No, I just thought
Another innovation which I would really like to do, I would want to go to the next level. And during live news broadcast, if somehow we can have the anchors, talk about a brand and plug that in, that will really be next level.
You should ask these guys whether they're allowed that.
You want to take that up right now?
I think you should.
Honestly, it is a bit of a hole. We do try and guard the integrity of the product, and I think that's important. That being said, though, I think over the past few years, one has seen requests of this nature come to us many times, and I think broadcasters have responded positively. I think there have been many instances, and I don't want to go into specifics of this network or the other, but even in our own network, there have been many instances where we've looked at integrating brands seamlessly in the content, in the context of the production of the news bulletins, etc. And I think that process will only accelerate. I think what has also happened, and Mona alluded to the fact that a lot of networks now are really talking about branded solutions, and I think that again is something which is a very exciting space for both broadcasters and I'm pretty sure even for marketers, because that's where you can collaborate and create content which is relevant, which goes on the platform, which works for the brand and works for the broadcasters. So I think that's also a space, and there the flexibility in terms of what you can do with the product is just so much more the same platform. So I think, I think it'll be a bit of a journey. I think to begin with, in innovation, you will start seeing a lot more in the branded content space. But I think learnings from there will then eventually reflect in the core product as well.
I'll just want to add a little bit on this innovation side, and an example, really. So innovation, to my mind, is not only about changing format or doing something for that particular day in a way. I think if you use news as a platform strategically in a different way, okay, that's also a kind of a sort of, you can get into innovative areas. So I'll give you an example. In my previous stint at Times Internet, one of the, for the brand Magic Bricks, we decided, to really conduct an experiment of sorts. And being a real estate platform, the news was, a perfect affinity genre. And what we were looking at was, typically you invest a certain amount of money, say 20-25 crores, behind a campaign for 4 to 6 weeks, and that's a rough average in a way for a normal kind of a campaign. Okay? We said, what if we take this money and we create a sustenance kind of a strategy where you spread this money over 12 months, okay, and be present only in a specific genre, okay, and see if it really sustains the brand metrics that are there. Okay? And the idea was to really see whether you really need to necessarily buy impact all the time, and you really need to have that conventional sense of doing that campaign 12 weeks burst all the time, and so on and so forth, or can we really build it? Also, it was coming from a kind of a business requirement, because real estate is a longer gestation kind of a category, and you do not have marketing messaging generating immediate responses, and therefore you build audiences and consumers over a period of time, right? And they take 3 to 6 months to arrive at a decision, and so on and so forth. And so this kind of fit perfectly well, and we experimented with that, right? And so for about 8 months, we were present only on news as a genre. That included English, Hindi, vernacular, depending on the market priority that we had. And we invested the amount of money that we would have invested in a particular campaign for a season, behind this initiative. The results were, I would not say surprising, but part of it was per expectation. We did see brand metrics and marketing metrics holding out. And we did not see a massive dip in TOMA or any other metric that we were looking at that point of time. Where we did think probably we could have done better, or this strategy could have played better, is if the point that I was making is if I had an opportunity, because I was consistently present on news 24/7, almost for 8 months, if I had a way to really ride that audience curve when you really saw a peak, because of an immediate breaking news or immediate event happening. If I could have really rode that, maybe this could have really given me something which was very, very interesting. So innovation per se, I think news has a lot of potential to really offer to brands, from that perspective.
It's fantastic. It's great to hear this. And okay, I think we've spoken enough of innovation. From innovation, I'm going to shift and start talking about ratings. Let's spice this up a little bit, right? So, we all. So I'll put that to you, Shashank, first. So we know how important numbers are in marketing. Ratings is one form in which you figure out news channels, and how important is it for you? Is that the holy grail? How do you go about consuming these ratings when it comes to planning for brands?
Yeah, absolutely. Ratings are, of course, essential for us for any brand media plan which we make. And there is a reason for that, of course. When I talk from Maruti Suzuki's point of view, we have advertising budget close to about 1,500 crores. 500 crore goes into television. We need to have some basis for investing large sums of money. And I'm not talking only from an audit perspective or a finance perspective. As marketers, if you put in big dollars, you need to be very sure that you are putting it at the right place. Of course, there goes this argument and that spice which you were referring to, whether the ratings themselves are right. In other words, are they leading you to make the right investments in the right channels, or are they misleading you to make the right investments in the wrong channels? So that is something which obviously is the debate which is going on, and the spice that you refer to. But there has to be a basis. Clearly, when we look at metrics, he was referring to about awareness levels or frequency building or the other parameters, including brand consideration, for example. We need to have a basis and a solid basis for investment. And while I understand on some parts, like some impact properties, you can make big bets sometimes, but that is apportioned to a smaller base. And we do make those bets even in news channels. One way what we have done, of course, is we do sort of a reiteration or a reconfirmation or reaffirmation of those ratings. We have our own research. We get close to about 12 lakh inquiries from consumers every month. We have a basis by which we just check whether the ratings sort of reflect the actual habits of the consumers for our category. That's how we do. But there has to be a basis. That much I'm quite clear. You can make that basis stronger. You can make the basis stronger. And I think the current debate in the industry is how to make that basis stronger. I do hear a couple of times people saying, let us not be part of these ratings. There are, of course, channels who do that. But I think it's a confrontationalist approach. It's not going to help advertisers or even the platforms or the broadcasters. I think we need to find a solution, agree, have a consensus in the industry. We need to have a basis, and let us try to make that basis more stronger. In other words, the measurement parameters should be defined, and it should be done in a way which is proper as deemed fit by all broadcasters. So I think that is essential for us. I can say that we are not going to invest a single rupee without on the normal not the impact ones, but on the normal media plans without having a basis of ratings.
That's an absolutely fair point, and you're talking about serious money there, and it has to have some basis. Prasun, you want to add to this?
See, I think there is no debate here, right? From a marketer's perspective, you do need a currency, okay? And without currency, it's very difficult, really, also to justify what you're doing at the end of the day, right? Because not everything adds up to everything else. So ratings are important. However, exactly what Shashank was saying, I think all good brands today are also doing their own checks of sorts. Because you keep reading about, you keep hearing, all these controversies happening around, ratings and, someone opting out, someone saying something else, and so on and so forth. So they do see, they do kind of seed a kind of a, seed of doubt, saying whether you can completely trust them and go solely by them, right? While they are a basis, but I think as a marketeer, at least, I can speak for myself. One does apply a little bit of, your own, thinking or, findings on top of that. Whether those findings are your own, the way, for example, Maruti is doing, through their own means. I think a lot of brands, including us, also do that. And you try to figure out, okay, fine, a campaign happened, and you get into a, post-campaign research. You try to figure out media efficacy and efficiency, and how did it work, not work, and you try to corroborate the data points and figure out whether things are, really making sense. Numbers are talking. Sometimes you do get, positive results. Sometimes you do not get positive results. So again, there is no, consistency that at least I have seen even there. So therefore, there is a doubt. Having said that, I think without numbers, without ratings, without audience measurement, it's not possible to really decide on a solid television plan as a marketeer. And I do not know of any other way of doing that really, minus.
I see him getting ready for
Yeah,
more spice.
Samir picked
more,
up
more spice.
the mic.
I'm just going to add and introduce a little bit of analytics quotient into the entire conversation. So for a lot of digital brands, one of the biggest intentions of advertising is to generate immediate action. Obviously, we would want people to walk away with a positive perception of the brand and eventually start thinking about buying it and eventually go to point of sale and buy it. But brands that are present digitally and the transactions that, if the transaction can happen digitally, you want to drive immediate action. What we do, apart from looking at the ratings when we make decisions on media buying or planning, is to also see the propensity of the eyeball to generate an action. I'll give you a very small explanation of how we do that. We would basically overlay the TV spot data with the website traffic and lead data. So we would basically try and measure if an ad spot was aired on a particular channel at a particular point in time. Post the airing of that ad spot, was there a visit generated on the website? And try and connect those two things. Now, this kind of a methodology helps us not just in identifying which genre to pick or which channel to pick, but also trying to understand, what hours people tend to react on advertising more than others, what days of the week are better, etc. And that also helps us customize our deal grids with various TV channels. So with our partners present here, we have very customized deal grids, which are not your standard deal grids, which have advertising throughout the day. We try and advertise only on certain prime time hours. A lot of mathematics goes into a lot of that. So ratings are definitely important, but they're not the sole decision-making criteria.
It's interesting how you put it. In fact, what I get is everyone's saying basis is important, ratings is a part of it, and then there is a layer that everyone's adding to it, and very, very important because it just can't be that one single factor that you look at.
Amit, I just wanted to add that when he mentions about those parameters of action, call to action for his brand, of course, different brands will have different parameters. So some are like instantaneous, where you have a quick, and therefore you build that layer. Some may be a little different. For some other brands, it could be a slightly later action. But ultimately, the measurement of performance of your media plan will always be there, I suppose, for all brands. So whether the needle moved on your BC scores or your needle moved on your UA scores, there will be some needle you will be watching.
If it's working, something has to work. Show. Yes. Exactly the point. And absolutely.
So the experience of kind of really working and taking a channel mix also counts, when you're kind of selecting for the future. Apart from just the rating, which is the basic hygiene everybody's kind of saying is important. But layering it on with a lot of qualitative parameters versus validation from the ground itself, from your stakeholders straight, to kind of really get a verification whether what the rating is really saying is right or is it in the same direction. I think also very important is, and I think Shashank and I think, Prasun, you also kind of brought in that point. Every channel has its own prime point. Every channel has its own audience space. Every viewer who goes onto a particular news channel goes there because he wants to hear a narrative which probably he's comfortable with, or he trusts, or you have an anchor, or whatever it may be, which kind of gets him to really go and kind of really watch the channel day on day. So if you look at and I keep going to, and I'm here, I'm putting my media planner's hat right now a little bit. Because if you do a deep dive into every channel, every channel has their own different prime point. What probably planners do, and maybe that's what kind of gets presented, overall, is that they look at the overall GRP of a channel and they say this is the rank number 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you do a deep dive, you'll find that some channels, for instance, the GRP's dominant part of it comes from a particular time slot. For the other channel, it comes from the other time slot. So it is very, very important to spend some. It's a precious money. And I think reaching out to a very critical, significant audience who's also opinion maker, to really deep dive and look at the channel, which is a slot or which is the prime time which kind of works the best in which particular channel. It cannot be largely taken, on saying, oh, this is the number one, this is the number two, because overall GRP matches up to that much. I think that's a little bit unfair, and I would really urge agencies and the marketers to kind of probably spend more time, and kind of looking at and deep diving to the data and understand it better, and just kind of not just building a plan basis, a rough gesture.
I think as a marketer, that's music to my ears, right? But the question is, are channels willing to really get into those kind of deals? Are they really willing to sell like that? If I say that, listen, I want to advertise only between 7:30 and 8 p.m. in the night, and give me a deal only for that, right? I mean, most of the times, whenever I have tried to do that in past, channels have come back saying, nahi, hamara to, RODP le lo, and or kind of, we can give you only as much, and so on and so forth, right? So, it kind of goes both ways, right? It's music to ears. I think if you can customize it to that extent, as he was saying that, they have already scientifically figured out what works best for them, why not? And we'll only buy that.
So again, wearing both my hats, which is sales hat and also the planning hat, I would say that, it can be absolutely worked out. I don't think so. I think largely what happens is, the major universe or the major, you people are different marketers, who kind of probably more evolved and understand data better, But there are many, people who kind of look at news genre as a commodity buying, and they kind of believe, that just buy a deal and you formally spread it across the day, and that's what it is. It's all about that. But they really don't look at, looking at it from a point of really engaging with that serious consumer that the news genre kind of draws to them. I think that's very, very important. And so answering to that, yes, it's possible. Prasun, please come to us. We'll be able to kind of offer you a tailor-made deal as you require.
I'm almost getting identity crisis. You guys don't need a moderator, I guess you were saying. So let me quickly jump in. Just before the session, I was telling Shashank and Aditya that, I won't stretch this beyond a certain point. So now, last question, and 30 seconds for each one of you. And I think fantastic discussion, honestly, from my perspective also. We've spoken about how important news channels are, what are we doing differently, how are we judging news channels when we are picking it up for building brands. But, there must be something else that we can do. Something that, from your perspective, that you feel that a news channel should do differently. And I can start with you, Anindya. And then we can follow it up with each one of you.
So, one of the things that comes top of my mind is that we have been having this discussion for long, TV versus digital, or, as if these are like two platforms which are running up against each other. What I feel is that TV channels or news channels need to be more inclusive, rather than being divergent. If we can be, convergent, wherein rather than being a competition to each other, if you are in a position to take advantage or take leverage of the digital medium and become complementary to each other. For a particular TG, it may be, the digital medium which would be much more relevant, and you may be getting a higher ROI using digital. At the same time, it is not that, and that's the reason why even today we call it as TV plus strategy and not as a digital plus strategy. So nice. I think these are a couple of the things. I would not get into details, but I think there is an immense opportunity for both the platforms to exist and grow further, but provided there is an intelligence to use how to bring it to a convergence.
Fantastic. From your perspective, what could be different?
Look, for my perspective, I think every day is different. That's news. Every day is different. Look, we are in a intensely evolutionary phase, I think, across the world in everything that we are doing. We've already touched upon several points, whether it's in the space of innovation, content, technology. I think technology, Anindya was talking about convergence. Prasun spoke about, the ability to monetize for them, moments better, right? How do you do that? I think the interplay of technology, and that's something that we are seeing at our network, very intense, examination of how different workflows can be integrated, and therefore, as based on that integration and technological advancement, what is it that we can do for marketeers which is better? right? Going to the point that you were making, Prasun, or, that if there are opportunities there, how is it that you are able to more effectively? But I want to step back. Technology, digital, all of that is fine. I am at heart, and you're an advertising person. It's really about content. So, if we can invest in content, right, and that's never going to go out of fashion, never. That's never going to go obsolete. So if we can invest in content, create really, really kick-ass content, and work with marketeers doing that, I think it's a win-win for everybody. And that's an ongoing process. It's never going to end.
Fantastic. I love it when someone talks about content with passion. From Shashank, your perspective, what do you feel could be different?
One, of course, is this content bit, because I think that's really important from a marketer perspective as well. The type of content which can be more relevant and can be really good from the perspective of the consumer. That's one. Second, I think is that this whole balance between digital and the linear stuff. Because frankly, as a marketer, I've not been able to crack that. We're still, of course, the thing is evolving. If somehow we could have that real sweet balance, that's something which, as a marketer, I would love. And of course, if every channel can get together and arrive at a conclusion, how to have the common ratings without any mirch masala, it would be really good. And finally, of course, one really good thing, every time Bark releases rating, I get a lot of mails the next day, and every channel seems to be #1. So please, if they can stop sending those mails to us.
You're asking for too much, but we'll see. But yeah, it's a good point that you guys are making, which is saying, we're talking to consumers, and hence balance the TV and the digital bit. Some of your perspective, what would you do differently or think of differently or use it differently?
So two very small points. One, from a marketer's point of view, I think this whole debate about ratings and, some channels not agreeing with the others on what real ratings are, etc. So I'm really looking forward to return part data being in place. And I do hope the channels reach some sort of a consensus as to, okay, let's accept this as the common currency. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be possible, but let's hope so. Secondly, more from a consumer's point of view, to some extent also from a marketer's point of view, I think in the news prime time, so Aditya was mentioning that in news every day is different. But I think what's not very different is the prime time news format of debates. I think we might want to look beyond debates also. I think it's had its fair share of life of a decade, I guess, and I think it's time to probably move beyond debates. Yeah.
Interesting. Prasun, your perspective.
2 points. One is from a marketer's perspective. I would really love to see a lot of customized solutions, coming on the table. And there could be a combination of a whole lot of things, including branded content and other things that we have spoken about. I think that's the need of the hour, and I do believe that a lot of brands do not really want to buy commodities per se. They want to buy solutions which works for the brand, and so that's something that probably could be good if that happens. The second perspective as an audience is, yes, going beyond debates, but I think news channels must definitely look at how do you want to arrest this transient audiences who are coming and going out of your platform all the time, and create programming format or create enough stickiness on the platform, and that's also going to help brands, because then if I have to repose my faith in Mona's channel tomorrow, I would literally be very, very confident saying, okay, fine, there are newer audiences coming in, their audience is sticking, and therefore, there is a better value getting realized. So, whatever format of content that can be, you guys are expert on that, but I think that's the need of that.
Fantastic. So we will end with the final voice. Mona, from your perspective, what do you think could be different?
I'm happy to hear everybody kind of speak, right, from Shashank to Samir to Prasun, because I think it really gladdens our heart. And also people, my news fraternity, partners all day, I'm sure they're very happy to hear that. I think it's very, very important to kind of, like you said, content, and doing differentiated things, which kind of helps the brand to be able to engage in a much more stronger way with the consumer. We're doing all of that, in fact, we do a lot with many advertisers. We'd like to kind of do much more of what we're really doing right now. I think my urgence and my request is to be able to give us a window where we actually can come and discuss with you, what propositions we have and how we can engage better with you all. We already, I think, are doing all of that, very much so with a lot of people, and would want to do much more with many advertisers, especially the advertisers who represent the corporate world. So thank you very much. That's
fantastic. Great session. Great perspectives. Like I said, different perspectives. Thank you so much for your time, thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to thank each one of you here on stage for this wonderful and powerful session. You have shared all your anecdotes and shared your experience, highlighted your thoughts also. So kindly stay back, as I would request Mr. Rahul Kaushik, who is the Vice President, Sales and Marketing, TSC, the Ayurveda company, to please come on stage and hand over a token of appreciation to each one of our esteemed panelists on stage along with the session chair. Can we please have a huge round of applause for Mr. Rahul? Can we have the gifts, please? Thank you so much, everyone. You all took a time out for us and shared your valuable thoughts on the session and made it such a wonderful discussion. And I hope our audience have enjoyed the session. And one more gift for our session chair, please. Can we have it a bit faster? Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Please stay back. We'll take a moment of yours one more time for the photo op. And I would once again request my team member to please accompany all our esteemed speakers to the speakers lounge and take their feedback about the session, that how this session is has been important for them and been useful for them. Thank you so much, everyone.